What if the California gold rush wasn't really about gold at all? We're told that the discovery in 1848 opened the door to sudden riches for anyone daring enough to seize the opportunity. That it was a turning point in America's story, a glittering moment when ordinary people could transform their lives overnight. But was that really true? Or was the gold rush America's first great marketing campaign, a scheme that promised wealth while delivering devastation and disappointment? The story begins on January 24th, 1848. James Marshall, working at John Sutter's sawmill in Coloma, California, spots shiny flakes in the riverbed. He tests the metal. It's gold. Legend says he whispers, "I have found it." Within days, word spreads. Sutter himself reportedly wanted to keep the discovery quiet. He feared it would ruin his dream of an agricultural empire. But the news leaked, and soon whispers turned to shouts. Newspapers in San Francisco, New York, and eventually even overseas carried tales of rivers lined with gold. Here's where the mystery deepens. Was it really an accidental discovery? Or was the story amplified, even staged, to lure settlers into California, a territory the US had just wrestled from Mexico? Suddenly, the new land wasn't just valuable farmland, it was a land of instant fortune. The idea was irresistible, and within 2 years, nearly 300,000 people abandoned their lives and set out for California. But the truth waiting for them was far different from the dream. The myth of the gold rush is that anyone could get rich if they worked hard and got lucky. The reality was crueler. By the time most 49ers arrived, the easy gold was gone. The best claims along rivers and streams were already taken, and what remained required months of backbreaking work for meager returns. Consider this. Out of the hundreds of thousands who came, fewer than 1% found enough gold to become wealthy. Many who did strike gold spent it quickly on supplies, gambling, or inflated prices in the boomtowns. Fortune slipped away as quickly as it came. And yet newspapers kept printing stories of miraculous finds, men plucking nuggets as big as fists from creek beds, workers stumbling into thousands of dollars in a single day. But most of these tales were exaggerated or fabricated outright. They served as advertisements, luring more hopefuls westward, keeping the rush alive. Meanwhile, the real winners were not the miners, but the merchants and middlemen. Levi Strauss made a fortune not digging for gold, but selling tough denim pants that could survive the mines. Samuel Brannan, California's first millionaire, famously bought up every pick and shovel he could find before announcing the discovery of gold to the public. His profits dwarfed what most miners ever saw. Shopkeepers, hoteliers, and land speculators lined their pockets while miners toiled in mud and misery. In a way, the gold rush wasn't about mining at all. It was about selling the dream of gold over and over again. The tidal wave of people transformed California overnight. San Francisco in 1847 was a sleepy settlement with a few hundred people. By 1850, it was a booming city of over 25,000. Imagine the scene. Ships abandoned in the bay, their crews rushing inland, leaving vessels to rot. Streets jammed with wagons, tents, and shacks, saloons, gambling halls, and makeshift markets springing up on every corner. But this rapid growth came at a cost. Law enforcement was nearly non-existent, and crime flourished. Disputes over mining claims often ended in violence. Vigilante justice filled the void of courts, with mobs hanging or whipping suspects on flimsy evidence. Prices soared. An egg could sell for the equivalent of $25 in today's money, and a pair of boots might cost months of wages. Women, though few in number, found both opportunity and exploitation. Some built thriving businesses running boarding houses, laundries, or bakeries. Others, however, were forced into servitude or the sex trade. For many, the gold rush wasn't a path to wealth. It was a brutal gamble for survival. The boomtowns glittered with promise, but rotted underneath with chaos and corruption. They symbolized the paradox of the gold rush, a society chasing wealth so frantically that it often lost sight of justice, fairness, and even humanity. Beneath the feverish rush for gold lay one of history's great tragedies, the destruction of California's indigenous peoples. Before the gold rush, California was home to more than 150 tribes, living in diverse and complex societies. Within just 2 decades of the rush, their population collapsed from around 150,000 to fewer than 30,000. The causes were many: disease brought by miners, starvation from the destruction of hunting and fishing grounds, poisoning of rivers with silt and mercury, and direct violence from settlers. Militias, often subsidized by the state, carried out massacres of entire villages. Laws legalized the kidnapping and forced servitude of native children. To the new settlers, indigenous people were seen as obstacles to progress, not as human beings. The gold rush did not simply displace indigenous communities, it targeted them for removal and annihilation. What was framed as a story of opportunity and wealth was, for native Californians, a story of invasion and genocide. Their suffering was not accidental, but an integral part of the system that allowed miners and merchants to thrive. The gold rush quickly became a global event. By 1852, nearly 1 in 4 miners was foreign-born. Chinese workers arrived in large numbers, bringing skill, discipline, and determination. Latin Americans, Australians, and Europeans also made the trek. California became a crossroads of cultures, languages, and traditions, but the promise of opportunity clashed with harsh reality. Chinese miners were subjected to racist laws like the foreign miners' tax, which charged exorbitant fees simply for the right to work. They were harassed, driven from claims, and attacked by mobs. Latin American miners, though often highly skilled, faced similar treatment. Foreign miners' camps were targeted for theft and violence, while white settlers used the law and vigilante justice to push them aside. This was not the melting pot of opportunity it pretended to be. Instead, the gold rush exposed deep fractures in American society. Race and origin determined who was allowed to participate fully in the dream. Those excluded often ended up as laborers for larger mining companies, their profits siphoned away by others. The gold rush was a reminder that the American dream was never equally available to all. It was filtered through prejudice and power. The frenzy for gold didn't just reshape societies, it reshaped the land itself. By the early 1850s, the easy surface gold was gone, and miners turned to more destructive techniques. Hydraulic mining blasted entire hillsides apart with high-pressure water cannons, washing away forests, soil, and rock in torrents of mud. Entire valleys disappeared, leaving behind barren scars. The debris clogged rivers, raising water levels and flooding farmlands downstream. Mercury, used to separate gold from ore, poisoned waterways, fish, wildlife, and people. Much of that mercury still lingers in California's ecosystems today. The environmental consequences of the gold rush were so severe that farmers in the Central Valley waged a legal battle against hydraulic mining, eventually leading to the first major environmental lawsuit in U.S. history in the 1880s. The gold rush was not just an economic story, it was an ecological disaster. It showed how quickly human ambition could scar the land in the pursuit of wealth, leaving behind damage that would last for generations. While California is remembered as the gold rush, it was far from the only one. Similar frenzies erupted in Colorado, Nevada, Alaska, and the Black Hills of South Dakota. Each brought the same cycle: feverish migration, broken dreams, rapid fortunes for merchants and financiers, violence against native peoples, and environmental devastation. The Black Hills Rush in particular was driven not just by economic desire, but by political manipulation, as the U.S. government violated treaties with the Lakota Sioux to seize the land once gold was found. These smaller rushes prove that what happened in California wasn't an isolated event. It was a blueprint for exploitation repeated across the American frontier. By the late 1850s, the gold rush had ended for the lone prospector. The days of panning in creeks were over. Mining shifted into the hands of corporations with the capital to fund deep tunnels, massive machinery, and industrial labor forces. Most ordinary miners went home empty-handed or stayed in California to take up farming, ranching, or wage labor. But the legacy of the gold rush reached far beyond those who stayed. It catapulted California into statehood in 1850, reshaped the economy of the American West, and left a cultural imprint that still endures. The myth of the gold rush, that wealth could be seized by anyone bold enough to reach for it, became woven into the fabric of American identity. Yet the reality tells a different story. The real wealth was captured not by miners, but by merchants, speculators, corporations, and opportunists who sold the dream rather than chasing it. And maybe that's the most important lesson. The gold rush wasn't just a chapter in history, it was a pattern. The same spirit reappears in Wall Street speculation, in oil booms, in Silicon Valley startups, in every craze that promises overnight wealth. The dream of instant fortune persists, but so too do the costs: inequality, exploitation, and environmental destruction. So here's the question: was the gold rush a story of opportunity or America's first great scam? And more importantly, do we still fall for the same dream today? What did you think about today's video? Comment your thoughts and suggestions for my next video below. I'd love to hear what untold story of American history you want me to cover next.